Of course. Yeah, go figure. Oh my god. Gibby is broke.
God damn.
Alright. That was fun.
I don't give a fuck. Fucking Newcastle slower. It feels so much slower, dude. It's insane. Hey. I know.
Why did it take 35 points to fucking
Yeah, you
entry?
automatically. Yeah.
35 points. Okay. That makes sense.
Excuse you. Who are you talking to?
Absolutely nobody.
Right.
Alright, I'm gonna go
Automatically
eat
loses
and then
35
I'm
points.
back.
Okay. I'm gonna wait then to do any more. I'll probably just do some regulars. That way we can get fucking ranked about the same time.
Okay, sounds good.
Weapon is selectable on the weapon wheel in the pause menu or is capable of being used offensively. I don't consider things like the Golden Fleece to be weapons, for example, because they are passive. What? You can only upgrade it once, and the only thing that gives you is the ability to counterattack, something that up until now was either tied into upgrades for other weapons, or was something you got automatically by collecting a specific item. There's a reason why the Golden Fleece wasn't a selectable upgradable weapon, because the abilities you got from it should have been default abilities. By having this as a selectable and upgradable weapon, that implies that it's deliberately positioned as an offensive weapon. And as an offensive weapon, it's the most useless weapon in the game and the series by default because you can barely use it offensively. That's the point. Defensive items shouldn't need to be upgraded. I have a theory that this was only a thing because Chains of Olympus really didn't have a big selection of weapons, given that it probably had limitations on space, which would also explain why it's only a 4-hour game. Now, I like Chains of Olympus, don't get me wrong, but it was certainly a choice to have what should be a defensive item with all the abilities unlocked automatically be presented like this. I'm basing this entry on weapon usefulness, and this weapon is essentially useless because it's not really a weapon, and yet it's presented as such. So let's move on to the actual weapons. Actually, not yet, because I'm honestly not even sure sucking, because usually ranged weapons are more about contextual usage over actual power. You know, an enemy's far away and you can't reach it, so break out the ranged weapon. But at the very least, you can usually rely on them being fairly useful once you upgrade them, but the Light of Dawn from God of War Chains of Olympus is not that. It's painfully slow to the point that you can be interrupted by a snail coming off the effects of MDMA. Let me know in the comments section if that made any sense. Literally being able to shoot faster is considered a feature worth putting as the upgrade. So they knew it was slow and weak, a deadly combination, but never carried that thought far enough to just make it faster, or make it more powerful. Plus, it also takes something like 7 shots before you can take down a single archer late into the game. Archers, by the way, being the most ineffectual enemy in the game. So its speed to damage output ratio is dreadful. The biggest feature you get by upgrading it is the charged shot, which takes forever and a day to charge up. So of all the ranged weapons in the series, it's a race to the bottom, and this one absolutely places at the bottom for me. The Arms of Sparta from Ghost of Sparta is the personal spear and shield that Kratos used while he was the general of the Spartan army, which is actually a pretty neat detail. Although unlike the Draupnir spear, they never quite get around to establishing why the spear keeps reappearing in his hands after he throws it. Probably the magical ability of suspension of disbelief. Its melee attacks are short-ranged, but the damage output is solid. Both the spear and the shield get some good contextual usage, and it generally feels good to use. It doesn't have too many combos, but the combos that are there are intuitive, and I never get tired of the crunchiness of slamming your foes with the shield. More importantly though, the Arms of Sparta has quite a few special abilities. Multiple standard specials, charged specials, you name it. And of course, you have the ranged aspect, making this probably the most useful ranged attack in the original series because its use far exceeds the ranged element, unlike other weapons of its ilk. So for versatility, variety, contextual usefulness, and overall enjoyment, I happily put the Arms of Sparta. Many people were probably rightfully happily put the Arms
Whoa!
of Sparta this high up on the list. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, hear me out. I know many people were probably rightfully assuming that the Blades of Chaos were going to top the list off, because these are the blades that the entire series is near enough built upon. There's no denying the iconic status of the Blades of Chaos, hence why the reveal of the Blades of Chaos in God of War 2018 is potentially the single greatest moment in the entire history of the series. With that said, there is one issue hanging off the Blades of Chaos in my opinion, and that is Ascension. God of War Ascension is my baseline for what a C-tier game is. It's incredibly mid and quite frankly makes the blades not fun to use by locking most of your combos behind a really ill-conceived Rage of the Gods variation where you have to refrain from being hit in order to power yourself up. This, of course, being in a series where you're often swarmed by 5 to 10 enemies at a time, each attacking you in different intervals. Basically, they tried to fix what wasn't broken and ended up breaking it. With that said, there's no denying just how good the Blades of Chaos are in their other iterations. God of War 1, Chains of Olympus 2018, Ragnarok. I feel like God of War 1 and Chains of Olympus feel a little bit ill-refined compared to the later entries in the series, in the former's case because it was the first game in the series, and in the latter's case having hardware limitations. But either way, every single time the Blades of Chaos have shown up outside of Ascension, they are fun to use. They're versatile, they have plenty of attacks, though I wish they would unlock slightly quicker. They have a lot of impact behind their attacks, and they're iconic. Regardless of which game they appear in, they are my main go-to weapons. And the ones I always upgraded first. It's a little hard to gauge how the modern-day God of War games stack up compared to the original games because they are so different, to the point that I was considering not even including them, but if there's one constant throughout the entire series, it's that the Blades of Chaos have never not kicked ass. Except for Ascension. To me, Poseidon's Rage in God of War 1 is the first truly useful magic attack. It's an electric area of effect attack, and it's a perfect crowd-clearing attack for when you're getting swarmed and or overwhelmed. It's a good equalizer. It uses up more magic than some of your other attacks, but to me it's totally worth it. It's a reliable go-to attack from the start of the game all the way to the end of the game, and its upgrades only make it more useful, with a single attack practically being able to cover an entire battlefield. Despite that, though, there is one attack that I feel ends up replacing it for me. To be clear, the Blades of Chaos are more fun to use in the modern games, but as a full package, the Leviathan Axe has a better batting average. I'd say with the exception of the Blades of Chaos, the Leviathan Axe is probably the most iconic weapon in the series, at least to those who were open-minded enough to not reject the Norse games on principle, or because they were told by some YouTuber that the new games are a disgrace or something. And that's because it's the main weapon of the games that are, statistically speaking, at the time of writing, the most played God of War games in history. But it doesn't get a pass based purely on iconography. The audio-visual presentation of the latter-day God of War games are simply dynamite, so this weapon couldn't feel any better to wield if it were actually in your hands. And given the fact that Ragnarok introduces haptic feedback, I'd say that might not even be much of a stretch. Given the fact that this game endeavors to streamline things to a certain extent, the Leviathan Axe, acts as both a melee and ranged weapon, with the ability to throw it and recover it at any given time. The base amount of combos is pretty small, but with the amount of abilities and special attacks you get, and the additional ranged element, it's potentially the most versatile and adaptive weapon in the series. Combine that with a really good feel to the weapon, and the addition of a significant amount of combat depth in Ragnarok, and this is easily one of the best weapons in the series. Blades of Athena, functionally identical to the Blades of Chaos, but they featured in God of War 2 as well as Ghost of Sparta, both of which were somewhat more refined games than the original God of War, and leaps and bounds better than Ascension. You have a few different attacks, such as this attack Rampage of the Furies, which replaces the Lance of the Furies attack from God of War 1. Plus, the counterattack has been changed. You can even reflect projectiles back at the thrower. Otherwise, a lot of the changes are cosmetic, making the animation come across as more realistic. It's tough to really talk about the Blades of Athena because inevitably a lot of the talking points have already been talked about with the Blades of Chaos. But if you ask me, I think the Blades of Athena come out on top for two reasons. One, a better batting average for a start, and two words: Thera's Bane. I agonized a bit over whether or not I should include this as its own entry, because Thera's Bane has its own upgrade slot in the menu, but I figured if I counted the two Gorgons as the same entry, I should probably do the same for this, seeing as it's basically just an upgrade for the Blades of Athena. But what an upgrade. You temporarily infuse the blades with fire, which increases its damage, breaks through armor, and with certain attacks, leaves your enemies with a timed explosive strapped to them. It's a great enhancement for them to throw in here, and it uses the same recharging item bar from God of War 3, so you don't have to expend magic power to use it. It's a very useful and very satisfying addition to the Blades of Athena. So the Blades of Athena get the nod in this case, but they're still mostly functionally the same as the Blades of Chaos, as well as another weapon we'll get to in a minute. Army of Hades to me is the absolute best magic attack in the entire first game. It uses up a heavy chunk of magic power, but it's worth it because you summon several damned souls from the depths of Hades itself to continually attack all the enemies around you for a set amount of time. It can basically hold a small army aloft and deal chip damage while also stunning them, leaving them open for you to attack them. It's so incredibly useful. The only drawback is it takes a lot of magic power, as I said. So even with a fully upgraded magic bar, you can only use it like twice, but it's absolutely worth it, especially in the harder fights when they break out the more powerful enemies. It's a simple concept, essentially summoning a couple of NPCs to do the work for you temporarily, but it's so perfect for so many situations.
I don't know where you've been sold, but I'd be insane not to play my role. Yeah, I know I can break a fall, this takes too long. Just know that I got it.
You can only use it like twice, but it's absolutely worth it, especially for so many situations. I absolutely adore Cronus' Rage, even though it's incredibly awkward to spell. It is my most frequently used magic item in God of War 2 by a wide margin, and possibly my most used magic item in the entire series. You just plop an electric sphere in the middle of the battlefield, and it automatically damages a certain amount of enemies with
Come on,
a
Kevin.
certain range, depending
Go
on
outside.
what level it is. It
Kevin.
even stuns enemies briefly, giving you a window of opportunity to break enemy guard and hit them with your best attacks. It works passively, so you can continue to attack enemies while it works. It is insanely versatile and insanely useful. It doesn't do the most damage, and it also doesn't last a particularly long time, but unlike something like Army of Hades, it also only uses a small amount of magic power, so it balances itself out, so you don't have to worry about hoarding large amounts of power in order to use
Party.
it. You can also place multiple of them at any given time, and they can stack, giving you ridiculous combos, which helps with the red orb bonus.
Kevin, go.
Basically,
Go party. Go party.
Rage is just a convenient item in every possible way, to the point that it almost makes every other magic item irrelevant in God of War 2. Now, I have no idea how to pronounce this. Nemean Cestus? Whatever the case, these are the gauntlets that you get by beating Hercules in God of War 3. To say they pack a punch is seriously underselling these weapons, and also a bit on the nose. You can practically feel the crunching bones behind every single strike with these gauntlets. Every strike is delivered with such a satisfying thump. The audio-visual feedback, the enemy's reactions, it's just the perfect feeling weapon. It doesn't quite have the same versatility as some other weapons because it's inherently short-ranged minus a few special attacks where they go out on chains, so there aren't too many different types of combos you can do with them, and the magic attack that's tied to it isn't anything spectacular, it's just a wave of energy that damages anybody in a straight line, but it's still generally my second most frequently used weapon in God of War 3. Ah, looks like we got some foreshadowing. Although it's partially my second most frequently used because they force you to use it at times to break shields, but that's besides the point. I would have used it either way because that's just how good they feel to use. That combined with how powerful they are per strike easily puts this weapon this high for sheer ease of use alone. It is a dynamite weapon, but it's not quite the best weapon in God of War 3, and it's not quite the best weapon in the entire series.
At Elite Gamer, we can't stand lag. We made it our mission to get you gaming as fast as possible. Our Game Boost technology creates a dedicated connection between you and your favorite game's servers, so you get less lag and more wins. Try Elite Gamer free. Lag less. Live longer at EliteGamer.com.
This is how you order all this delivery food for cheap. Okay, so first, Domino's.com. Choose your favorite pizza, or in my case, 4. Then click the Honey browser extension. Boom, there it is. $52.56 in savings. Okay, and just for fun, let's try with a fancy meal now. DoorDash.com. Click on Honey.
You go in?
Yeah, I guess you
Okay.
can say this is the happiest I've ever been eating delivery.
Add the browser extension today and buy pizza, delivery food, and pretty much anything else you can buy online at an absolutely absurd discount. Add Honey today for free at joinhoney.com.
Okay, so as much as not placing the Blades of Chaos at the top of the list might piss some people off, there was definitely going to be a 100% chance that the Blades of something were going to place at the top of the list. And for me that goes to the Blades of Exile, the chain blades given to Kratos at the beginning of God of War 3. This is mostly my own personal bias seeping through because I simply find God of War 3 as a total package the best game in the series by a significant margin. But hey, being the best weapon in my favorite game kinda makes you win by default. It has a lot of the same basic combos as the other Blades of Blank, but with a little bit of switching around of special attacks, rearrangement of combo attacks, and a few unique elements in its own right, including the magic attack that's tied to the Blades of Exile, the Army of Sparta, which is a very useful crowd-clearing attack that drops a shield wall on top of you and damages anybody within a certain radius, and fully upgraded will even give you the ability to rain arrows on top of everybody left. It's a very useful magic attack that's also fairly unique. The Blades of Exile have the same versatility and variety the other chain blades do, while also feeling simply smoother and more refined as weapons than what came before. It's the best version of the best weapon in the series, and that's why it places at the top for me as the best weapon in the history of God of War. Alright, well that was yet another ranking video in the books. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm thinking I might want to do God of War bosses next. The only issue with that is that it's already been done, so I'm not quite as committed to the idea since I know whatever I have to say has already been said. But I'm still interested. Let me know in the comment section if you're interested in hearing me talk about God of War bosses. Now, if you like what I do here and want to support the channel, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, and hitting the notification icon so you're always up to date on what I'm doing. And if you want to support me in a more direct fashion, you can pledge to my Patreon for unique perks and rewards like early access, exclusive content, and Discord benefits.
No. No. You're fine. What's wrong with that with a baby? What's wrong with that with a baby? Ain't nothing wrong with that baby. Ain't nothing wrong with that baby. Rosie. Mama.